Alright, grade 10s. Today we're going to very briefly look at what you can expect when it comes to your compare contrast essay and a quick example of what you could do. So what I'd like you to do is pause this video and make sure that you have the poems Introduction to Poetry and Warren Pryor open while we are listening. So please pause and go and find those. I am now assuming that you are back with those two poems in front of you. So what will happen on the day, and I'm not sure what it's going to look like now that you're in working from home, but assuming that you write this when you get back to school, you are going to get a couple of topics and they're going to look like this. So one might say, everyone experiences disappointment at some stage. Discuss how two poems from your studies explore the theme of disappointment. So I have selected Introduction to Poetry and Warren Pryor, and I would argue in my essay that Introduction to Poetry, the poet is disappointed at his students and readers because they attempt to find depth and analysis in one answer from every poem. And Warren Pryor is disappointed because of this burden that he carries in having to look after his parents. So I'm then going to go through and I'm going to look at, well, what stylistic features could I comment on? So we might be able to comment on the structure, how the structure is quite free, there's quite a lot of enjambment, and this could mirror his wish for poetry to be free and lacking sort of one strict answer. You could speak about the parallel structure and the repetition of I ask, I say, I want. It suggests that he's demanding, he's feeling frustrated. You might look at the word but, the conjunction but, and how that talks about disappointment. You could certainly talk about the negative diction at the end and how people are tying up poems, they're torturing them, they're beating them, and how his metaphors change. In the beginning, when he talks about poetry, it's light and it's like birds and it's like nature and it's alive, and then people end up being like his descriptions are quite negative about torture and poetry being trapped. Then with Warren Pryor, you would also be able to talk about structure. You could talk about how it was a strict and controlled structure. There's a strict rhyme scheme, which creates a sense of being trapped or controlled, like Warren Pryor feels. You might want to talk about the biblical illusion, about how the bank is like with a capital letter, and it's like the savior. And this might come under a discussion about symbols. There's the short sentence towards the end, and he said nothing. You could talk about the caesura. The caesura is a full stop in the middle of a sentence in a poem, so that might be a punctuation paragraph. And then you could look at word choice and how, particularly at the end, there's a very negative ending where he feels like this caged bear. And there is the simile, like he is like a young bear. What you would then look at is what trends do I see between these, and how would I be able to structure my essay? So I would certainly be able to talk about structure. There's structure here, there's structure there, that could also become under structure. So I could have one paragraph where I discuss the structure of the poem. Word choice or diction seems to be quite common, especially this sort of ending idea that the poems both end quite negatively, so that could maybe be paragraph 2. And then I would need to look at, well, where else could I find another paragraph? Would I want to talk about punctuation maybe? Or would I want to talk about symbols? Or would I want to talk about comparisons to make my third paragraph? You can certainly have a paragraph on theme, so that could potentially be your first paragraph. Your second one could maybe be word choice. Your third one might be something different. I'm not sure. You'd have to go and look at that. Punctuation or comparisons. You could have one about the ending. And then your final paragraph might be about structure. And as long as you keep coming back to this idea of disappointment. So how does this conjunction discuss the theme of disappointment? How does this short sentence discuss the theme of disappointment? How do these words discuss the theme of disappointment? How does the structure talk to the theme of disappointment? All right, and so that's how you would plan your compare-contrast essay.